Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's ILTA Encore Roadshow presentation, iManage Work 10, the next generation for user experience. Okay, sorry about that for the feedback. Our speakers today are Jim Moreo, who is the principal of Cornerstone Information Technologies, and Scott Dumore, the director of pre-sales at iManage. I would also like to thank Cornerstone.IT for sponsoring our webinar today. Our presentation today will run about 45 to 60 minutes, and we ask that you submit all questions to the Q&A box. And if those are not answered during the presentation, we will address them at the end. Before we start, please know we are recording today's webinar, and we'll post a link to our website under recordings shortly after today's presentation. I also want to make mention that at the end of the presentation, we will put up a poll and ask that you take a few moments to complete these evaluations. These are really important for us to continue to deliver the topics that are timely. All right. Okay. I will now turn the webinar over to Jim.
Great. Gail, thank you very much, and thanks everybody for joining us today. We have an excellent webinar presented to you by Scott Dumore of iManage. I am Jim Moreo. I'm one of the principals of Cornerstone IT. We are a nationwide solution provider to the legal industry. We are a longtime iManage partner for about 15 years at this point, where we help firms upgrade to the latest version of iManage, as well as migrate from other products, whether it's NetDocs or WorldDocs or OpenText. We're also a longtime ILTA vendor partner, where we speak at the ILTA conference itself, lunch and learns, as well as on webinars like this. Today's presentation is, we're going to start off with a deck on what's new, a PowerPoint deck on what's new at iManage, including talking about two new products from iManage, the Security Policy Manager, as well as Threat Manager. And then Scott will get into the demo of Work 10 and show the new web interface, as well as the integration with Word and Outlook. I will be monitoring the questions, so I'll interject as you guys post questions onto the board and pose them to Scott. And with that, I will hand it over to Scott. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Jim. Again, thank you all for attending our webinar today, and thank you to Cornerstone for hosting this. As Jim said, my name is Scott Dumore. I'm Director of Pre-Sales here at iManage, and I'm going to be taking you through the presentation and demo. And as we start out, I want to talk a little bit about the motivation behind iManage Work 10. iManage Work 10 really represents a sea change for iManage as far as how we approach the user experience and user interaction with our products. We recognized that the rules have changed. When you look at user expectations today driven by what we call the consumerization of IT, we don't really expect to have to spend a lot of time getting trained on how to use applications and systems to get our work done. So for example, if we download an app on our phone or on our tablet today, we don't expect to have to go to a day-long or even a half-day training session on how to use it. We expect to just be able to figure it out and be productive right from the get-go. And if we're not, we delete it and we get rid of it and we try something different. So that's the expectation, like it or not. And that is the standard that we had to develop Work 10 to. And we think we did that. But you know, what we recognized also is that iManage has been in the market for nearly 2 decades. And we have a lot of customers and a lot of users who utilize our classic iManage experience. So how do we approach this? How do we put something out that is fundamentally different and caters to this new way of working, or what we refer to as the new professional, but at the same time ensure that we're still meeting the needs of our longtime classic users? And so what we're saying here is that we recognize that there's these two personas: the new professional, somebody who's highly flexible, who works a lot on their mobile devices, who's on the go, who needs mostly to consume information, be able to find it very quickly, and utilize it in a way that makes sense for them. So that's one persona. The second persona is the classic user. This is the person who's more traditional with their document management needs. They're at their desk a lot. They have some very deep functionality that they need. In iManage terms, they're folks that generally rely on our desktop applications, such as desk site or file site. So we needed to make sure that both these types of users were accommodated. So with Work 10, what you find is a great blending of these two approaches. The solution itself has to be touch and responsive, and it is, meaning that it has to work the exact same way, whether it's on the desktop or tablet or phone. It has to be intuitive, as I said, no training. That means whether it's for the new professional or for the classic user who's transitioning to it, it has to be something that requires very little training and is very intuitive and easy to use right from the get-go, as I said. And then finally, from an IT perspective, from a total cost of ownership, it has to be easy to maintain, easy to deploy. So this was a tall order, but this was what was in front of us when we set out to develop Work 10, and we think that we've accomplished it. So when you look at really any application, any solution that we use in our day-to-day lives, it's mission critical to the function of our business. It has to be all of these things that we have along the side here. It needs to be able to provide collaboration. When we're talking about managing work product, we need to be able to collaborate internally and externally. Of course, it has to be secure. It has to provide mobile access. When we're on the go, we have to have the exact same access and functionality as we do on the desktop, as I said before. Agility and productivity, I think that goes without saying. It's got to be something that we can be productive with, again, without requiring a lot of training. We've got to reduce the total cost of ownership and make it easy to manage. But all of these things all contribute really to the top one, which is user adoption. And that's what it's all about. Any solution that you put in front of end users is ultimately going to be judged on its success by how well it's adopted by the user community. If you don't have good user adoption, it's not a success. It can be the greatest technology in the world, but if users won't use it, it's not going to be successful. So for us, Work 10 was really about user adoption, and all of these things contribute to that. So as we went through the development process, these are all the individual items that we recognized that Work 10 needed to be, and indeed is. So first off, it's designed by users. When we went through the development process, we put versions of the product actually in front of lawyers for testing, and we watched how these attorneys interacted with it. We asked them to do different activities, and then based on that, and the results from that, we put that right back into the product. As I said before, it has to be mobile first. It's got to work the same way on my tablet, my iPad, my iPhone, whatever it is that I'm using as it does on the desktop. You'll hear us say a lot that the system is smart. What we mean by that is that it can anticipate what users are looking to do. It has to be easy to use. And one of the analogies that we like to draw is Amazon.com. We all know how to use Amazon.com or eBay or any online retailing site. It's something that we just intuitively know how to do. We know how to search, we know how to filter, we know how to find what it is we're looking for. So that experience on the consumer side drives the expectations on the professional side. So when we developed Work 10, when you're searching for your content, when you're shopping for your content, so to speak, it should be just as easy to use. And then finally, it's tuned to today's information volumes. And what that means is, regardless of whether you're a firm with 50,000 documents in your system or 500 million, it should respond and perform and function the exact same way. There shouldn't be any degradation of performance regardless of how much content or how many users you have. And that required an entirely new architecture. So this is how we developed Work 10, and this is what we accomplished. So just taking a look at sort of the highlights of Work 10. When we look at the user experience, number of things that we built into it, and some of these things I've touched on. You know, smart search, the ability to anticipate what users are looking for. That Amazon-like filtering, whether I'm doing a search or looking at the timeline view, which you'll see in the demo, I should be able to easily filter through based on content type, date range, the activities, whether it's something that I viewed or edited, and so forth. Providing contextual help, little pop-ups that give you hints on how to do things rather than having to go through a full training class. And having inline properties and versions and preview capability when you need it, what we call elective disclosure, the ability to see more information about documents when you want to, and to put that away when you don't. These are all some of the the highlights and functionality that we built in Work 10. On the server side, looking at the actual platform, the underlying infrastructure, there's some interesting things we've done in Work 10 as well. And one of those is file journaling. So for the first time in Work 10, you now have the ability to have a trash bin feature. That means that if you delete a document, you can actually go back and recover it from a trash bin very easily. But this also leads us into more interesting functionality as well, which we'll be introducing shortly, where, for example, if I've overwritten a particular copy of a document or overwritten a particular version, the file journaling allows me to essentially go back in time and recover it from a certain point in time, which is very nice. Security has been a key point for us. We now support ADFS and SAML 2.0 authentication providers. So if you're using anything for a single sign-on that's SAML 2.0 based, we can support that. And from an encryption standpoint, you can now utilize non-Windows encrypting file system encrypted stores. So if on your SAN, for example, you're using IMC's encryption as an example, that's supported as well. And then also under the hood, a full next generation RESTful API. This is an API that's completely HTTPS based. So what that translates to is lighter weight installations on the desktop, less DLLs to have to deal with, and a system that performs better, particularly over wide area networks and the internet, and that's easier to maintain and easier to deploy. On the email management side, some key enhancements here: the ability to file an email to multiple folders in one action. So if you're a trademark or an IP attorney, for example, you can now select an email or multiple emails and then file those to multiple matters at one time. Improvements to attachment handling. You'll see this in the demonstration. I now have the ability, if I send a contract, for example, out of iManage to external parties, they sign it and they send it back, the system will actually remember which document it came from and prompt me to automatically save it as a new version to that document. And then finally, because of that new RESTful API that I mentioned, that reduces the client footprint of our email management integration into Outlook. And this is good news. Anytime you can reduce the footprint or the amount of things that you're installing and plugging into Outlook, that means more stability on the desktop. So with a focus on filing, we don't take away any functionality. We just now lighten the load inside of Outlook and provide a more streamlined experience that's easier to maintain and again provides better stability in Outlook. Looking at the Office integration in Microsoft Word and other Office applications like PowerPoint and Excel, the same rules apply. The new API, the new RESTful API, means that we now have a lighter weight integration that plugs into Office. It's easier to maintain and update. It's more reliable, particularly over the internet or wide area networks. And the solution now is recency based, and you'll see this in the demo. And what I mean by that is that it allows you to basically pick up where you left off. You have an activity list now that shows you what you worked on today, yesterday, last week, and so forth. And with the filtering, you can very quickly get down to the document that you left off on. And from an offline standpoint, we now have an auto caching capability. So as you work on different matters and documents, we're automatically caching this in an offline cache so that if you start up Outlook with the iManage integration in place while you're offline, you can see the exact same view from a matter-centric standpoint of all your matters and documents right there, and again, be able to pick up right where you left off even though you're disconnected from the network. And there's no manual interaction involved. It all happens automatically. From a mobility perspective, there's a couple of angles here. The main user experience that you'll see in the demo, of course, is all HTML5. It's completely responsive, meaning it works the same way on mobile devices as it does on the desktop. But we haven't abandoned iOS and our dedicated app for iOS. That gets an update in version 10. Provides functionality that is, from a user experience standpoint, identical to what you have in the HTML5. But because it actually runs natively on the device, provides us to, or allows us to do some interesting things like implement a shared storage provider for iOS, which allows direct opening and saving of iManage content from Microsoft Office, for example. You have offline capability. security curtain. So as you're swiping between apps, we can shield that information so people don't see it. And it's completely integrated with Touch ID, so you can secure the app itself with Touch ID. So these are some of the advantages you get if you were to use the iOS app other than just the HTML5 web app. From an administrative standpoint, also some interesting things that we've done. iManage Control Center, or IMCC, or ICC as it's called, allows us to improve the ownership experience, as we refer to it. What this means is that we're finally giving you updated tools to manage your iManage system. So all of the tools that you've been using for years, things like DB Admin, Monitor, Workspace Generator, and so forth, are all now being combined into one single administrative experience. And this works just as well for our cloud customers as it does for our on-premises customers. Being able to do the basics like metadata management, users, groups, roles, managing metadata, and so forth is all there. And then we get into some new functionality, the ability to support bulk import and export and workspace management, the trash bin functionality. And then also some new functionality as far as system monitoring goes. You now have role-based administration, tiered administration. So instead of just an NRT admin account that provides one-size-fits-all administration, you now have the ability to delegate certain administrative tasks to help desk admins, for example, and so forth. We finally have included common reports, so you can run reports on the iManage system right from within Control Center, and the ability to schedule jobs and maintain those jobs. So Control Center really is a full-featured administrative experience that's significantly updated now with Work 10. So Jim had mentioned some of the new directions that we're going as well. And there's a couple of products that are both security related, cybersecurity related. The first is iManage Security Policy Manager, and the second is iManage Threat Manager. So what's the motivation behind these? Well, with Security Policy Manager, you now have an additional module that allows you to provide ethical wall-like need-to-know security capability natively within iManage. With iManage Threat Manager, you have the ability now to do real-time analytics and actually detect when someone is in your system doing something with iManage content that they shouldn't be, like exporting lots of documents or exporting from matters that are outside their practice group. The motivation behind these is what we see in the world today as far as cybersecurity threats. So with Policy Manager, for example, what we found when we talk to firms or we go out and look at their database is that usually between 60 and 70% of all the documents in their iManage database are set as public. And when we ask why, they say, well, because it's too much trouble to secure the content. When we secure it, we get too many complaints that people can't access what they need. So other than ethical walls on the matters that we absolutely have to set them up on, we just leave everything as public. Well, here's the problem with that. When somebody compromises your environment with a phishing attack and they actually get legitimate credentials into your environment, which is where we see most of the cybersecurity attacks in law firms. It's not an issue with people breaking through your firewall. It's with compromise of legitimate credentials. Once they have those legitimate credentials, they now have the keys to the kingdom. If 70% of your data is public, people can access that. So Policy Manager is about providing need-to-know access. It's about securing everything and making sure only those people who have a legitimate need to know things actually know it. And it makes it actually easy to do that. Along those same lines, you can now set up ethical walls and conflicts, either at the user level, the matter level, or the client level. So with Policy Manager, again, it's all about minimizing exposure, making sure that you have the ability to apply security at these different levels, whether it's client-driven, firm-driven, regulatory-driven, if you're a corporate legal department, and to secure the content easily in the way that it should be in order to minimize exposure so that when somebody does get into your environment, you're minimizing the amount of data that they can actually access. So being able to do it at all these levels, again, restricting access at the document level, setting up security barriers through roles, whether that be based on opposing client or matter teams or people with conflicts, and setting up data handling policies, going beyond just security and specifying what data, for example, can go outside the firm or go on portable media. This is all part of what Security Policy Manager does. And again, it's all about minimizing exposure when those bad actors do legitimately compromise your network. Now, iManage Threat Manager addresses a situation when people are actually in your environment and are accessing content. You can actually catch that person when they're doing it. So assuming someone has successfully launched a phishing attack, has gained credentials to your network, and is now in and is accessing content that a person who they're impersonating actually has access to, how do we tell the difference between the bad guy and the legitimate person? It could be situations even when it's actually an internal person, perhaps a lawyer who's planning on leaving the firm and is taking data with them. How do we detect when people are doing things that they really shouldn't be? And the answer is machine learning. So with Threat Manager, we have the ability to actually go through and build baseline activity models of what different users do in their daily life. We'll continuously scan the system then, and we'll start to look for outliers and generate reports when we see that something is happening that is outside the threshold of what users should be doing. And what it produces is essentially a threat report that looks similar to what I'm showing here, where we have different threat bubbles. And the color of the bubble determines the level of threat, green being no threat, red being a high threat. And then the size of the bubble indicates the amount of content or information that's being compromised. So a smaller bubble means that it might only be a matter or two. A larger bubble means it may be multiple matters or many hundreds of documents across those matters. So this very quickly lets you drill into the most credible threats and start to do some forensics to see if the person who's doing this is legitimate or is indeed a bad actor, and you can see the scope to what they're actually doing. Okay. So that concludes what I wanted to cover in the presentation. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch over to my demo system, and I want to take you through a quick demonstration of iManage Work 10.
Hey,
So
Scott,
yes, go ahead.
one of the questions as it was posted, and probably good transition into what you're doing, is do most of the features of Work 10 work with Office 2010?
No. What you're going to see in the demonstration here today with iManage Work 10 supports only Office 2013 and 2016 and beyond. And the reason for that is because Microsoft significantly changed the integration model between 2010 and 2013. So while 2010 can still be supported with our classic clients, what you'll see today with Work 10 is only 2013 and beyond.
And then just a follow-up question to that is, does it work with Windows 10?
Yes, Windows 10 is fully supported. Were there any other questions on that, Jim?
Not yet, no.
Okay, very good.
Thanks.
So, so what I've done here, I switched over to my demo system, and I've logged in to iManage Work 10, and this is it. I've come in, and what I'm seeing here is my timeline view. This is what I talked about in the presentation. So this is what allows me to basically pick up right where I left off. The system is showing me what I've recently been working on. Starts off in my recent documents, and I can see things that I worked on today, last week, farther back in time. If I scroll all the way down to the bottom, if there's multiple documents, maybe several hundred, I could go ahead and easily page through those. So it wouldn't matter if I'm looking at 29 items or 29,000 items. The system provides me the same capability and the same performance. So the timeline view, again, allows me to see up to the minute what I've been working on. And then I have the filters on the left-hand side to quickly filter down what it is that I want to see. So let's say, for example, I only wanted to see those documents that I've recently been editing. I can just deselect viewed. Or maybe I'm just looking for things from today or within the last week. Again, with just a couple of clicks or a couple of taps with my finger, if I'm on a mobile device, I can see that information. Or I may just be looking for PDFs or the Word documents that I've been editing. Again, the point is that the filters are very intuitive and allow me to just quickly narrow down this information. Searching in Work 10, as you can see, is top and center, as I always like to say. So in addition to leveraging the timeline view and the filtering, I can search at any point in time. So let's say, for example, I was searching for an agreement. I go ahead and I put in the word agreement. And what you notice happens here is the system pops up what I call a mini profile. Rather than going to a big profile form separately and putting in different fields and hitting go, this just anticipates what it is I might be wanting to look for. And it says, okay, well, you typed in the word agreement. That could be a search in the body text, or you might be looking for agreement just in the title of the document. So it's anticipating and giving me options to narrow down my results without me having to leverage a separate profile form. So let's go ahead and tap title. And now I've run the search for the word agreement, but just within the title of the document. And you see what's come back is 134 results, and they're personalized. That's what you see highlighted right here. What that means is the results are scoped just to those clients and matters that I've recently been working on. So they're relevant to me personally. Now, of course, if I want to search system-wide, I can just tap all. That about doubles my results. But personalized is the default. Personalized is what allows me to just stay focused on those things that are of interest to me. And it allows me to tune out the noise, which again improves relevancy and improves the user experience. And I can still leverage these same filters. Again, if I'm just looking for Word documents or PDFs, it's just a simple tap to go ahead and bring that up. Let's say, for example, that I was looking for something authored by a particular person in my firm named Andrew Case. I could go ahead and type in Andrew's name, and you see that, again, the system is smart. It sees the word Andrew, and it says, well, could be a keyword, could be in the title, but I know that Andrew is also an author in the system. Maybe you're looking for that. So it automatically put his name in as the author or operator. So now if I tap that, it's run the same search. It's gone ahead and given me his picture and identified him as Andrew Case. Now I tap on his name, and it runs the results specifically for Andrew Case. So as easy as that, I was able to do an author search using the exact same mechanism. Now, some folks like to search based on document number. Let's say I was looking for document 33202. I go ahead and put that in, and again, the system comes back and it says, well, I see that's a number, so it's highly probable that this is a document number you're looking for. All I have to do is click the number, and now it takes me right to that document. So once again, if you contrast this with the way we typically search in a document management system, bringing up a profile form, finding the field, putting in the value, hitting OK, waiting for the results to come back, this is just a much more streamlined user experience. Now I'm going to do one more search here. I've got a favorite document that I like to work on by relating to one of my clients here, talk.com. And I see it comes right up here in my results. One of the things people ask me is they say, well, this is a really clean user interface here, but what if I want to see more information? I know some of these documents have multiple versions and I want to see the profile form. How do I do that in Work 10? Well, the answer is right here in the sidebar. If I go ahead and pop it out, when I want to see that information, it's available to me. So here are all the document properties on this particular document that I've selected. I can see the author, any comments, the type of document. If I scroll down, I can see things like the client and matter. I can even click Show More to, again, electively disclose more information about it. Let's say I wanted to change the jurisdiction. I can actually do that right from here if I have security rights. So let's change the jurisdiction to Texas. Notice it actually does a lookup for me. I just go ahead and tap that, and now I've updated the profile. So I was able to do that all very easily in the UI. Yeah, was there a question, Jim?
Yeah, sure. Two quick questions. One question on versions. Question is, one past issue I've noted is that if a document has multiple versions, you can't delete one version without messing up the entire chain. Has that been fixed?
Yes, that's not an issue. So if I wanted to, for example, I'm looking at the versions here. If I wanted to go back to version 15, very simple for me to just go ahead and delete that right from here. Yeah, there's no issue with that.
And that does not renumber or
Correct.
Change the numbers. Okay.
Correct.
Another question is, if you have a partial document number, can you enter an asterisk to get the to search for the entire number?
Yeah, that's a good one. Right now, the document number is going off of its entirety because it's doing a match. So it's doing a match on a numeric field. So you could certainly use an asterisk, but it's going to do a text match in that case. So it wouldn't use the document number field. It could still do a search using that number and an asterisk, but again, it's going to treat it as a full text field. So you're not going to be able to pick the document up by its exact document number, most likely in that case.
Okay. And one other question. Is the system cloud only or also on-prem?
Both. So everything I'm showing today can be accessed or is available through the iManage cloud, or it can be deployed on premises.
Okay. Same person had a few questions in the question field that said, Can we have multi-factor authentication for external devices like iPhones and iPads?
Yes. So with MFA or two-factor authentication as an ADFS authentication provider, that's what we support currently. And then in a follow-on release later this year, we'll be supporting native SAML 2.0 2FA authentication providers. But today, you do have that availability through the iOS app. Utilizing ADFS with your 2FA providers and authentication provider on the back end.
Okay. Can it provide data loss protection for BYOD devices?
Great question. There's two angles to that. We do provide some DLP functionality natively through the server itself. So being able to, for example, restrict whether you can email a document or cut and paste, things like that. For more fine-grained DLP functionality, though, we recommend that you deploy the Work10 app as a managed app through an MDM, like AirWatch or Good Technologies or Mobile Iron or something like that. We fully support Apple's managed app APIs, and you'll get significantly more fine-grained control through the managed app APIs and an MDM provider such as one of those.
Got it. Two other quick questions. Can you search by client number rather than name?
We'll talk a little bit more about that when I get over to the client matter information that we see under matters and clients. In documents currently, the fields that I showed there are the ones that we're searching on.
Okay, last question. Can searches be driven by keystroke? I'm assuming that meant that searches will be dynamic as you type in?
Not quite sure if that was the intent or if they were getting at, utilizing keyboard shortcuts. Keyboard shortcuts are something that we have scheduled for our next release, more fine-grained keyboard shortcuts to use. The search, when I do go ahead and do a search, we do have the ability to, kind of do a lookup and offer up recent suggestions or recent searches, I should say, as suggestions as you type.
Okay, and I'm sorry, let me just hit you up with two more questions. If it's on-prem, can you access it from the outside the office with a VPN client?
Yes, that'll work. That'll work just fine.
Okay, and can we authenticate different users, external users, authenticate with two-factor, with ADFS, and internal users with Kerberos?
That's probably one of those questions that would require a bit more conversation about it. But on the surface, I would say yes, that shouldn't be a problem. The internal users, could just go ahead and have the authentication set up using what we call network login for Kerberos. And then external users could hit an external server that would route them to their ADFS front end where they would go ahead and authenticate, get a token, and come through that way. So yeah, the short answer is yes, it can be done.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So one thing I wanted to continue with here, I'm going to go ahead and click the little preview item. We have an inline preview. And Work10 employs an entirely new way of previewing documents. We have a dedicated preview server now that renders these documents to SVG, scalable vector graphics format. The reason for that is that when I look at one of these rendered documents, I can now zoom in very easily as I'm doing here and notice that it doesn't fuzz out. It's really high fidelity, doesn't fuzz out when you're zooming in on a mobile device, allows me to zoom in and pan around and zoom back out. So the preview technology, although it requires a dedicated component, is well worth the effort to put in place because it really improves the preview capability. If I want to now go ahead and see this document in full screen, I just tap the zoom in button and now it takes me into a full screen preview. And there's a couple of things to point out here. When I bring this preview up, you'll notice that in contrast to the way we do previews in the classic clients, where the entire document has to download to your local device, this is just rendering to SVG and then on the server side, and then just displaying in your browser. And it's only sending a few pages at a time. So as I scroll, then we'll send more pages. So it's a much more efficient way of previewing documents, a much more secure way because it doesn't store anything locally. If I'm on a slow connection on my mobile device, I can preview a 500-page document just as quickly as I would preview a 5-page document. So again, much more efficient way of previewing. One other thing that I like to show here is that when I do come into the preview, if I want to search within the preview and have hit highlighting, I can just come up here to search. And let's say I was searching for the word asset. It'll find all instances of the word asset in my preview, and even gives me the ability to scroll through and jump to different sections of the document right here. So you can see as I jump through, I can click on that and it takes me right over to that right there. And again, just showing how we can easily zoom in and bring that up. Allows me to scroll through, and then I have the toolbar that you see here where I can perform different actions. I can edit the document from here, which I'm going to talk more about in just a second. I can download or upload if I just happen to be on a device where I don't have the integrated application. I can share the document right from here via email, and I can do it right from within the app. So if I'm on a mobile device, I don't have to jump out to my native email application. I can do it right from here. So if I wanted to send this to my colleague Andrew, who I was working with previously, I can just go ahead and put in his name, and then I can send it as a link and or as a copy to the document right here. Finally, one of the things that I particularly like about Work 10 is the ability now to see a visual history or audit trail on the document. So what we're seeing here is all of the activities on this document as you would normally see in the document history, but visualized. So for example, if Jim and I were working on this document and he asked me to go in and make some changes to it, and I wasn't sure exactly which document it was, I could say, well, Jim, I think I'm looking at the right one, but I'm not sure if it is. He says, well, it's the one that I emailed within the last month on this particular date. All I have to do then is go to the email activity, and I can see all the times that this document was emailed over the last month. I can even go into the last week, and I can see that it was emailed twice on April 27th and 3 times on May 2nd. So from this, I can verify and use it to validate that, yes, this is the document. I can even see in the audit trail who emailed it and when, on what days. So the ability to leverage the visual history is a great way to just validate, again, the documents that you're looking at. A great way to see everything that's been happening.
Hey, Scott, a question about previewing. Mm-hmm. Question is, what about emails with attachments? Does the preview server handle displaying the email and then the attachment?
It certainly does. It certainly does, and we'll show that when we jump over to the email portion.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm going to do now is I skipped over the little edit button here. Now I'm actually going to click on it because I've decided once I've validated that this is the document I'm looking for that I actually want to edit it. So when I click on edit, it opens right up in its native application in Microsoft Word. The iManage integration is a first-class citizen in Microsoft Office. We have a complete ribbon here that's integrated, and this is the version 10 ribbon. So everything that you're seeing here is going through that new RESTful API architecture. Everything is going over HTTPS. So it's very efficient, very lightweight, but we still have all the same functionality. So if I wanted to come in, for example, and make a change, we'll just go ahead and update the date here. Very easy for me to save this document or even save it as a new version. If I go ahead and tap a Save as New Version, notice that the dialog here is the same look and feel that we saw previously. If I wanted to save this as an entirely new document, I have the exact same searching and browsing capability that you saw before. So let's say I wanted to go into my recent matters list. I could see matters that I was recently working on. If I go ahead and do a search for Aladdin, for example, I can just type that in. Quickly takes me to that particular matter workspace. Or I think the question was asked earlier, what if we are looking for things by client or matter number? I can just type in my client number 1025 and notice that it immediately finds everything here for my client that has matter number 1025. Or if I were looking for a particular matter number, I could put in 1,000, for example. It's going to find matters, clients, everything matching that particular hit. So if I want to go ahead and quickly do a search based on client or matter ID, I can just put in the number and it's very quickly going to take me down just to what I'm looking for. If I browse into any of these workspaces, again, simple enough for me to come in, browse through the structure, select where it is that I want to save this document, and then I can just very easily save that document directly into it. The integration in Office is very complete. So everything that I showed you over in my web browser all translates over to Office. For example, if I want to see the visual history, the timeline view, I can see that all right here within Office. It's all active. I can see all the times this document was emailed over the past week, same way as I did in the browser. If I want to see any of the profile information, I just tap on properties and all that information is here. And again, if I have the appropriate rights, it's all editable. So I can, for example, come down and change security or change any of the profile information on this particular version that I'm looking at here. And of course, I can see all the versions as well. And when I look at the, go ahead.
Sorry. So, question is, if you did not have Word, could you edit a document?
If it's a Word document, you would not be able to edit it. There's no online capability that we provide for editing the document. You would have to have some some application installed locally that would be capable of editing the document.
Okay. And while I got you, question about do you support Office 365?
Yes, Office 365 is fully supported. This is the click to run version. We don't yet support Office Online. That means the online version that runs in your browser. That's something that we have targeted for later this year. But we do support Office 365 click to run, which is the version that's deployed locally to your desktop through the subscription model.
Okay, and one last question. Any data classification marking built in?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
I'm not sure of the question myself, but it says any data classification marking built in.
There's always the ability when you save a document into a workspace, it will automatically be classified based on profile information that's on the workspace and folder. We're not doing any tagging of documents. Tagging is something that we are looking at later this year. The ability to do manual tagging, where in addition to profile information, you can add tags. But we're not doing any analytical classification at this point other than profile inheritance when I file a document into a workspace and a folder.
Sorry, I think the add-on comment to that was meaning, can you classify it as public, private, or confidential?
Well, yeah, that actually is still part of the security model. So if I go into the security details here, you can see what type of rights everyone has. You still have access to the default security. So you can see that listed right here. Public, private, and view, that hasn't changed. Interestingly, I think the nature of the question might have been, what might be changing in that area, and actually that's what Security Policy Manager does. A Security Policy Manager does give us more flexibility as an overlay for the iManage security model to provide additional policy-based security settings. So that may be a question that's best addressed in a follow-on, dedicated Security Policy Manager discussion.
Great, thank you.
Yep. Okay, good questions. One of the things that I wanted to point out when I talk about the depth of the integration into Office, I happen to be looking at version 18 here of this document. If I wanted to compare it with, say, version 16, notice I can hit the little, what we call the kebab menu here, the little 3 dots, and it brings up whatever functions are available, including comparison. And if I select compare, this is just an example of how we integrate with Word's compare feature. Now, a lot of people ask, well, do you integrate with other comparison? We use Litera, we use Workshare, we use DocsCorp. Those are all integrated into iManage as well. So we've been working with all of our integration partners to provide full integration. This is just an example of how we use Word's native compare feature to compare a couple of versions. And you see me comparing version 16 to version 18 here. All of Word's compare functionality is available. I can save this in original document, revised, or new document, and that would go ahead and generate my red line. Along those same lines, if I wanted to finalize this document by rendering it to PDF, we're using Word's native PDF creation capabilities here. Third-party PDF creation through things like DocsCorp and Litera have integrations here as well. This is just showing how I could render this to a PDF as a new version or an entirely new document. And of course, if I select new document, it once again gives me the version 10 user experience to browse through the system and select where I want to save this. So if I wanted to go to my recent matters, go to a matter workspace, select the contracts folder, and save that PDF. It's as simple as doing that right through the integration that you see right here.
Hey, Scott, question about customizing menus. How many of the menu buttons features can be turned on or turned off or removed? How customizable is the app?
Well, some of this will be driven through security. So depending on the security rights I have, some of these commands may or may not be available. So on a document, for example, you may not have the unlock command available if don't have administrative rights on that particular document. I think the nature of the question is probably more from a customization standpoint. We do have a full Work10 SDK available. We recently ran a boot camp for our integration partners, and we have training classes that are now on the schedule and are available. And one of the topics is the ability to customize the user experience, including customizing menus, being able to put information in these sidebars and things like that. So that will all be available as part of our SDK training. But the short answer to the question is yes, the menus are customizable, and the information of that is going to be part of the Work10 SDK.
Okay. And question kind of go back to Office 2010. Do you recommend going to Work10 on the back end, even if you're on 931 Office 2010 on the front end?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. That's a great question. Work10 server is still fully backward compatible with the 9.x clients. We do recommend that you go to the Work10 server, get everything deployed. You can still be running 931, soon to be 932 on the desktop with the classic clients. Those fully support Office 2010. And then you can take a phased approach, because even those users who are on Office 2010 running desk side or file site can still leverage the vast majority of the functionality in the new HTML5 web client, which gets deployed automatically as part of your Work10 server. Then you can take a phased approach, and as certain users or groups or however the rollout is done, start to transition to Office 2016, you can start to deploy the full Work10 experience to them as you go. But yeah, great question. Short answer is absolutely. You can deploy Work10 and still keep the classic clients on the desktop with Office 2010.
Okay, great. Appreciate the answer on all the questions. Just so you know, we're at 47 minutes after.
Yep, great point. So that's going to bring us into our our last section here, which is talking just a little bit about email management in Work10. So I've switched over here to Outlook, and the first thing you'll notice is that we have our email management toolbar up here at the top. If you're familiar with iManage email management, it looks similar to what we had in the classic clients, but it gets the Work10 makeover, as I like to call it. So as I go through here and I click on different emails, the first thing you'll notice is that my suggested filing location that I have here in the toolbar automatically changes as I click on different emails. So we can offer up a suggestion the same way we always have. But if I click on the drop down here, the experience has been improved significantly. So in this case, I'm showing suggested locations, some recent locations. If I want to take the suggestion, I can just hit the quick file button, and with one click, I'm done. It'll file the email. If instead I want to browse or search for a new location to file, I can go ahead and click on that. That will now bring up this dialog that you see here, and this is what gives me the ability to file to multiple locations, as I mentioned in my presentation. So if I want to file to multiple locations, I could select one perhaps from my suggestions, I could select one from my recents, and then if I wanted to browse or search for a third one, I can click the browse button, and you see that we have the same Work10 look and feel now in email management that we've seen on the web and in the Office integration. So if I wanted to come in here now and do a search for Johnson, let's say, simple enough for me to do. I could even search by client. Let's go ahead and switch over here to clients and do a search for Ford, and it finds Ford Motor Company and Hartford Financial Services. So I have the exact same capabilities as far as searching and browsing here in email management as I do anywhere else I go. I'm going to go ahead and pick the email folder that I see right here. So now I've just searched and browsed for a third location and added it right there. We have the same capabilities as far as specifying whether I want to do a move or a delete, whether I want to override security when I file, or even print a hard copy if I like to kill trees. And once I tap File, now it's going to file that email into all three of those locations. Same rules apply when I'm sending an email. We have the same email management toolbar. I'm going to go ahead and send this to my colleague Fred, tell him that I need him to review. And then if we come up to the filing toolbar, we see suggestions if they're available or recent locations. And again, simple enough for me to go ahead and bring that up and send that email out. I'm going to go to this email that I have available right here. And you notice this has already been filed into iManage. It's got an attachment here. If I wanted to save the attachment, I can go ahead and save that attachment either as a new document or a new version. And as I mentioned in my presentation, the nice thing about Work 10 is that if we go ahead and select new version, the system in this case knows where that document as an attachment to an Outlook email originally came from in iManage. It takes me right to it. It was this document right here. All I have to do is click Save, and now it has saved that document as a new version of the original. I didn't have to go browse for it. If instead I wanted to bring it in as an entirely new document, of course I have the same search and browse capability to find the location and save the document right from there. The final thing to take a look at here on the Outlook side is if I want to do drag and drop. People say, well, this is great, but what happened to my drag and drop? I like to be able to drag and drop into iManage. It's not a problem. I can map my Outlook folders into iManage and then just simply drag and drop there. So I have an Outlook folder here for the arrow case that I've been working on. I'm going to go ahead and unlink this from iManage so you can actually see the whole process. But when I go ahead and right click, I just say link to iManage, and then I choose where in iManage I want to link this folder to. And turns out that the arrow case comes up right here at the top of my list in my timeline, Arrow Company and a Quantive. And I'll go ahead and map this to the email folder inside the correspondence folder. So once I've done that, I've now specified where in iManage I want to link this Outlook folder to. I can specify whether I want it to do a move or a copy, or whether I want it to override security. I tap OK, and now you see the icon changes, indicating that that folder has been linked to iManage. And anything that I were to drag and drop now into that folder, if I were to pick this email here and drag it over, what we would see happen in just a few minutes is that email that I just dragged in would get the little green circle with the check mark indicating that it's been filed into iManage. So if you're a dragger and a dropper, the Outlook folder mapping is a great solution there. So I'm going to go back over here to the web UI as we finish up here in the last few minutes. And I promised that someone had asked a question about email and attachments. And you notice here that you've seen how I can work with documents. You've seen over in the Word integration how easy it is to view the timeline view of your recent matters and search for matters, and even have a client-centric view now inside of iManage where I can see my recent clients, and even a roll-up view of all documents across a client. So if, for example, if I came into Ford, I could see all the latest documents across that entire client or matter listed right here. But one thing I didn't show was recent emails. And we treat emails specifically here in iManage in Work 10. When I go over to my recent emails, my recently filed emails, notice that the filters change. Now I have emails from me or to me. I still have the date range. I can specify whether or not it has an attachment or does not. I only have 2 emails here in my list. So if I want to see one with an attachment, there it is right there. I can go ahead and click on that email. And what you're seeing here now is you're seeing the email itself. And of course, its attachment is listed right here. So this is the attachment. If I go ahead and tap on that, it'll actually load it right up and take me right to that Word document and show me the attachment. So the question before was, can I still see my attachments in the previewer as they are attached to an email? And the answer is yes, it's right here. In fact, if you wanted to download a copy of it, you could do that right from here. And the back button will take you back to the original email. You can reply or forward this email right from here. And notice you can even do a send and file so that we'll capture that email as part of the conversation thread in the same folder right within iManage. And one of the things that I particularly like is that the conversation threading is completely maintained now in Work 10 when you're filing email. So this email right here, you may notice, has a little chevron icon over here on the far right. It means if I click on it, it doesn't take me into a single email. It actually shows me all the emails in the thread with a little preview over here. So now I can see all the emails in the individual thread. If I want to zoom into one in particular, I just go ahead and tap on that, and that'll take me right into that email. And again, I can do a reply or a forward right from here. And if this did have an attachment, we would be able to see that there as well. So this sort of finishes the story and closes the loop as far as how we manage email in Word 10. You saw in Outlook how easy it is to file it, even file to multiple locations. And now in the new user experience, very simple for you to work with email in the timeline view and see it all and search your email quickly through the Work 10 user experience. So I think we're finishing up here with about 5 minutes to the top of the hour here, Jim. That concludes what I wanted to cover in the demo. Were there any other questions that we can cover?
I do have about 8 more questions. Just want to make sure, Gail, if you wanted to say anything about filling out surveys before we hit the last question.
That would be perfect. I'm going to go ahead and put up the evaluations and make them accessible to everyone. Please take a few seconds to fill these out. We would greatly appreciate it. Jim, back to your questions.
The screen that had my questions on it. Oh, there it is. Okay. Sorry, the poll went in front of it. So, question about the file site. If you file email via file site today, how do you address that functionality using the web interface?
Well, what I showed was the Work 10 EMM. So that's how we address it. So Work 10 is, the web interface is only part of Work 10. The other part of Work 10, of course, is the Office and Outlook integration. And so what I'm showing here, this is not file site that I demoed for you today. This is actually the Work 10 email management, which includes the toolbar and the folder mapping capabilities. So this is how we address it. And that's how we handle filing in Work 10.
Okay. Will there be a native Android app?
Great question. We keep our options open. Right now, the honest answer is it's not on the roadmap. That doesn't mean that we wouldn't develop one. Our solution right now is to utilize the HTML5 web experience on Android. But should the market prove a need for it, we're open to developing an Android app. We just haven't reached that point as of yet.
Okay. When will this be available for cloud customers in the UK?
Work 10, as I showed it here, has been generally available since February. So it is available to cloud customers. If you have been told differently, you should definitely speak to your account executive and make sure that that everybody is hearing your request correctly, because this is available today to cloud customers. It's just a matter of having your implementation updated to it.
Okay. These questions came up while you were doing the email Outlook integration. Can you do a manual profile for saving?
That's a great question. So everything in Work 10, as you may have seen, if we go to a matter here and I go into a workspace and I pick a folder, we got the ability to do an upload. And you saw over in Office how I did the same thing. Now, if I do a manual upload here, it's going to upload it and it's going to inherit its properties from the folder. There's no option for uploading to the flat space. Okay, in Work 10, everything has to be uploaded to a workspace and a folder. So whatever metadata is set is going to be inherited. So again, there's no option in Work 10 for uploading to the flat space with a complete manual profile. Now, what we do support in Work 10 is, let's say I upload it to a workspace or a folder, and the folder does not have all the required metadata. What if the workspace didn't have the client matter number set and client matter is required? You will still be able to save the document or upload the document. You will get a message, rather than having a little check mark here with properties, you will get a message in red that says there is incomplete profile information on this document, please complete it. At that point, you can manually fill out the fields here. So that is one significant difference in Work 10. Prior to Work 10, you would simply not be able to upload the document. You would get an error message saying, I can't upload this because I don't have a client matter number, and you would never have the option to fix it. In Work 10, you can manually input any missing metadata information or profile information that doesn't get inherited by the container or from the container into which you're importing it.
Got it.
Hopefully that made sense.
If deleted from one location, is it deleted from all? I guess this was talking about emails filed in multiple locations.
Yes. When you do a deletion, yes, in Work 10, it's going to delete from all. Prior to Work 10, there was a distinction between remove from folder and delete. In Work 10, when we do a delete, we'll remove from all the references from all locations.
How does email filing handle duplicates if another attorney filed the same email?
Yeah, so that's still consistent with the way we've always done duplicate detection. It's done on the server side. That means that when I file an email, it'll automatically detect there's a duplicate, and there's two ways to do duplicate detection. We can do it on a system-wide basis, meaning the entire library can only have one copy, or you can do it on a matter-by-matter basis, meaning that you can have multiple copies in different matters. It's just a matter, no pun intended, of how you configured it.
Got it. If the document had been scrubbed of metadata, can it still figure out what document it is to be a version of?
Very good question. Very good question. Yes, it can. Where we're putting the information doesn't get picked up by metadata scrubbers. We can get you more technical information on how we're doing that. But yes, that's a very good question that's come up in the past, and there should be no issue with that.
Are auto signature images considered an attachment in emails?
That's a challenging one to answer because some of it depends on how your email system is configured as well. Typically we do not. It just depends on again the nature of how the email was sent and what is there. Generally through Outlook, it's not an issue, but you do see from time to time when things come from other email systems that the image gets converted to. It gets converted slightly in the email, so it pops up as an attachment. So it's, the honest answer is it kind of depends on, where the email came from and what systems it's passed through.
Got it. Is Work 10 backend compatible with 8.5 SP3 and Office 2010?
The answer is yes. I'm not sure which 8.5 SP3 they were referring to. If they were referring to a client, I assume they were referring to the client, and
right.
It is. The indexer is still 8.5 as well, interestingly enough.
So you can have an Office 2010 8.5 SP3 client connected to a back-end Work 10 server.
Yes, you can. You can. Of course, you won't have the new Work 10 client functionality that I demoed, but you can connect with the classic client.
Okay. Will there be integration with Mac OS X?
Great question. I ran my demo. Some folks may have noticed I was running my demo from a Mac myself. Our story for Mac is we have a new version of our file share product. FileShare 10, which is fully Mac compliant. And FileShare is a component that allows you to expose your work server on your network as a shared drive. So from your Mac, you can map a drive to iManage, and it will appear in all your applications right within the Mac Finder. What we're also doing is we've ensured, obviously, all the HTML5 components on the web work seamlessly with the Mac and with all browsers on a Mac. And then looking farther forward, we're continuing to work with Microsoft to develop our integration as a plugin, as essentially a universal plugin that will work the same whether you're on Office for Windows or Office for Mac or even Office for iOS. That's going to be farther down the road, probably late this year or early next year, but that's definitely the direction that we're going.
Very cool. Two similar questions. Can you customize filters, and are filters customizable based on properties of documents?
The filters are not currently customizable. What you see is what you get with the filters in the current release. What we are working on is expanding the filters out and giving users the ability, or I should say customers, the ability to configure those. We're also working on an advanced search where you'll have a more typical or classic profile type search available as well. The reason we elected not to do that in the initial release is that, again, our focus is on providing a very clean and very high performance user experience. We wanted to make sure that we did it right, and that means we couldn't just translate what we're already doing on the desktop and bring it over to the web in the HTML5. We had to make sure that we made the appropriate changes and implemented it in a way that was going to really perform well. So the answer is yes, eventually you will have that sometime later this year.
Okay, last 4 questions. What is the process of moving a document from one matter to a different matter, and can you move things via mobile or no?
So to move a document, if I wanted to move a document to a different folder in Work 10, it's pretty simple. I just say move, and then I go ahead and select the folder that I want to move it to. If I click on this folder right here and say move, I just move that document over to that folder, and it would work exactly the same way on your mobile device. So essentially the little, if people are still looking at the screen, this little bar down here with the dotted line around it becomes sticky and stays on the screen, and then I can just navigate kind of in back of it to the folder I want to move it to. When I click move, that does the move.
Cool. I see that you're using Chrome, assuming that it's just personal preference, but I wanted to make sure that all updated browsers are supported: Firefox, Safari, Edge.
Yes, absolutely. Everything is supported.
Please cover a little on the import-export tools in a new management console. How robust are they? Can they replace Milan, Arbro, Doc Auto tools?
The import-export capability is what we have in our follow-on release of iManage Control Center. We'll be able to talk in more detail about that when that's available in Work 10.01. So today, there's not a lot that we can really go into detail on as far as that goes. But we'd be happy to talk in more detail when we get a little bit closer to the release date for 10.01.
Okay, last question. Is the client a 931 what you're showing with EMM version 10, or is this a file site client for version 10?
No, this is just the version 10 EMM for Outlook. So this is pure version 10. Then this is not file site again. This is the email management plugin for Outlook that you get with the Work 10 Office integration.
Beautiful. Scott, that was a lot of answered questions very clearly and very quickly. So thank you very much. I know they still had about 100 people hanging on the line till the last, even though we went 7 minutes over. So I think that's it. Thanks, everybody, very much for attending. This was a great webinar. Gail, I want to hand it back to you.
Okay, well, first of all, Jim and Scott, you did an awesome job. Well received, great feedback on the evaluations. Everyone, thanks for attending, and the recording to the webinar will be posted shortly. So everyone, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye-bye.